How did the PPP scheme start in Korea? Traditionally, major infrastructure facilities used to be planned, financed, constructed, operated, and managed by governments, both central and local, or by government-designated public entities. But now these entities are less likely to fulfill such roles, due largely to the shortage of public funds, and also to the inclination that they inefficiently operate and manage facilities. Korea experienced severe fiscal strain throughout its economic growth period, resulting in low investment in infrastructure facilities, despite an ever-increasing demand for a variety of infrastructure services. Policymakers realize that the degree of contribution of infrastructure to economic development accelerates at the intermediary stage of economic growth. In the transport sector, for example, the Transport Infrastructure Development Plan of 2001 to 2019 exclusively designed to construct highways and arterial roads, railroads, and airports, required $415 billion. But the public sector could mobilize a maximum of only around $355 billion, leaving $60 billion short. The figure represented the total amount of funds that could come from the primary funding sources, taxation, public pension funds, borrowed funds, and designated funds, such as a special accounts for the road and railway sectors. Various efforts were made to make up for the shortfall in infrastructure investment, and one of them was the PPP scheme. It was said that by the 1990s, the private sector was financially and technologically capable of supplementing the government's role in providing high-quality infrastructure services. Also widely claimed was that the private sector, with its efficiency mindset, could operate and manage facilities at reasonable cost. This prompted the government to legalize the Public-Private Infrastructure Act in 1997. But the scheme failed in the beginning, primarily because of the financial crisis of 1997 and 1998, and also due to improper risk-sharing devices disadvantageous to the private sector. It went through a few years of trial and error before being successfully launched in 2001. Legal foundation and PPP process in brief. The Ppp Act, the Act on Private Participation in Infrastructure. The PPP scheme is designed to rely on the private sector in infrastructure facility financing and facility operation and management know-how. Thus, the Act and ensuing decrees paid particular attention to the institutional foundation that supported PPP procurements, specifying policy supports, methods and processes of procurement, the roles of the participants, both public and private, and its relationship with other relevant laws and regulations. For example, the Toll Road Act, the Railroad Construction Act, the Telecommunication Business Act, the Housing Act, the National Defense Act, and the National Land Planning and Utilization Act in particular. The Act also lists eligible infrastructure projects in great detail. PMAC as the PPP support agency. PMAC stands for Private Infrastructure Investment Management Center. It performs a multitude of functions on behalf of MOSF and plays a leading role in initiating, undertaking, and expediting PPP projects of various types and forms. For example, solicited versus unsolicited and BOT, BOO versus BTL projects. It helps MOSF formulate and implement the PPP basic plan, being solely responsible for project evaluation, selection, and execution. It also supports procuring authorities in PPP project development by promoting investment into PPP projects and operating capacity-building programs for public sector practitioners. When government authorities prepare PPP-driven procurements, PMAC provides such technical assistance as value-for-money tests, preparation of RFPs, tender evaluation, standard concession agreements, designation of concessionaires, refinancing methods, and negotiation with potential concessionaires for the competing authority. Proposal evaluation is an equally important task, which measures both the financial and economic rate of return. Benefit cost analysis and/or cost-effective studies are performed to assess the fiscal impacts of large-scale projects under consideration. It also determines project types, solicited versus unsolicited, and contractual forms, BTO, BOO, BTL, etc. Procurement processes are quite complex and time-consuming. They differ substantially by type and contract form, which also affect the government subsidy schemes. The subsidies are basically designed to share the risks, financial and otherwise, between the government and concessionaire. Matters pertaining to these subjects are all contained in the implementation guidelines as established jointly by MOSF and PMAC. They are continuously updated to meet the changes from within and without, not only in relevant laws and regulations, but in market conditions. PMAC consists of 3 divisions. The Public Investment Evaluation Division is primarily engaged in executing and managing publicly financed large-scale infrastructure projects. Both preliminary feasibility studies and reassessment studies are conducted at the planning stage of a project to examine the appropriateness of the proposed project, focusing on its objectives, economic feasibility, and the consistency with the basic plan. The Public-Private Partnership Division provides administrative and technical support in the process of PPP project preparation and implementation. It establishes guidelines for PPP procurement, conducts pre-feasibility studies and value for money tests, and assess an RFP formulation, tendering negotiation, and refinancing. The Policy and Research Division conducts a variety of research studies, largely addressed to successfully project selection and implementation. The study results are used to assist MOSF and other ministries in determining the medium to long-term PPP policies and programs. The division also evaluates the projects being implemented by public institutions and executes feasibility assessments for spending tax monies. It is also responsible for database management, capacity building, and training activities for practitioners, domestic and overseas, and international cooperation.